Hi, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and today we're working on our Miss Karen project. And today we're going to put the pieces all together. We've spent a lot of time making all of the individual pieces for this project. We've transferred the design to the background fabric. We've even put a few pieces on. I don't know if you can see in the camera. We've got one little section here where we've got everything put on. But today we're going to kind of go through everything really quickly, and then I'm going to show you what order I put things on. So we've got our design all marked on this background fabric except for this one section. So right after this we're going to start on this, and I'm going to show you what order I want to put them on. Okay, welcome back, and we're going to begin to see some fun things happen in a hurry now because we've done all our prep work and it's time to put it together. As I said, I've got one section that I've already finished here. I'm going to kind of swing this around a little bit so you can see it. We've got our flower, our buds, and our vine and our leaves all in this one section. So this is what each section is going to look like, and some of the other sections I've got the vines on. But this one here in this corner, I have nothing. In fact, I don't even have the pattern template traced to the background fabric. So I'm just going to really quickly show you that again. And where I always start is this straight line. And we don't need to draw the whole line. We just need to get a feel for where things intersect, because it's just a placement guideline for our pieces. And I know I've mentioned before that especially when you're working with vines, sometimes the size of the finished vine is much larger than the vine drawing, so you have to adjust things a little bit. But this gives us a starting point for our pieces, and we can adjust as we need to. And I'm just putting a few little marks here to give me directions. Okay, we've got that flower done. We're going to quickly draw these vines in. And you see, this is not a really precise thing. We're just, like I said, we're just looking for some guidance of where to place things. Now, usually for the leaves, I'll just do a little arrow at the top where they join the stem, and a little arrow on the other end so I can tell what direction, what angle that leaf is going on the project. And that helps me a bit when I need to adjust. We're almost done with that. You can see how quickly that really comes together. And then finish up there with that vine so we'll know where it is. And then here we've got the points out on our little curvy thing, and I've marked some of the center, which you're really not going to need because the way we constructed it, we put all the center pieces together. So here's all of our pieces that we're going to use. These are our straight vines, our curvy vines, the center medallion, the 3 flowers, the buds, and then all of the leaves. So when I'm thinking about how to do this, what I want to think first is what I want to sit on top, and conversely there, figure out what needs to be on bottom. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the curvy vines. And those are over here. And I'm going to take a couple of the shorter ones, because I always start with the shorter ones so that I'm using the things I can. Okay, so we can put that one here. And that's about that long. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And then I'm going to use some glue and glue here just so it sits underneath the flower bud all the way down to the stem. And then I'm going to place that vine. There we go. Now, this one naturally had been cut there, so it's cut at that same angle. And I have another one here that's cut at that angle as well. But if they had not already been cut on the angle or the diagonal, when you sit them down, then just run your scissors along that line and snip them. You can do them one at a time, or you can do them both together. But we want those to kind of butt up against each other so they're not super thick underneath our other vine. All right, let's do that. We're going to start here from the cut side since we have another cut one. See, they're butting up against each other. And I think in this case, I'm probably going to put just a little pin to hold it temporarily. And I'm using this over a light box, so if you're doing the same, be sure not to scratch your light box. Okay. And clip it. And then we're going to just hold it in place while that glue dries. So now we have our curvy vines in place. And at this point you have a choice. You can either move forward with gluing the straight vine, or you can put the leaves in. And I'm going to go ahead and put at least these 2 leaves here first, and then put the straight vine, because they're all coming together right there together. So this is going to be, I'm working this backwards. So this is the right one, and this is the left one. And those are going to be the darkest leaves. So here's the right one. And here's the left one. And I think when we talked about the leaves before, I don't know that there's really a big difference in them, but I chose to keep them separate just in case there was a difference. I think if you did this and you just interchanged them, it probably wouldn't be a big deal. I don't really see that much difference in them. And with these leaves, you're going to want to try to place them where the diagram has them. But you may need to move them out a little bit. You may need to move them in. But you're going to try to get that point in the middle at or underneath that vine. So there's one. And you just need enough glue to kind of hold it in place. Okay, so there we've got those 3 in place. And now we can put the vine in the middle. And like I said, I made these vines so that the one in the middle is straight a grain and the curvy ones are on bias. But what we may end up doing is when we get to the last flower, the vine in the middle that we're using a straight a grain for right now may end up being a bias on that last one, instead of having to make more vines. Okay. And then we're just going to sit that flat straight down. It's going to go over this area here, and you want to try to have it over maybe just one other applique, but sometimes you will catch the edge of the leaf. And then we're going to clip it. And we can always come back and clip that shorter if we need to. Okay, so we've got the vines now on this quadrant of our design. We will move on next to putting the other leaves in. Now, you could put the bud on the end next because it only covers up the end of the vine. But what I was talking about earlier about placement and leaves comes into play now because you've got all these leaves you've got to get in here and you've got a small amount of area. So you have to kind of be mindful of how much room they're going to take up. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to work on this one right here and put these leaves in place. And the next one we're going to do is we're going to do the one in the middle, and that's this one, too. And then, oops, I bit my left two. Now the 2 and the 3 refer to the fabric, both the placement on the design and the difference in the fabric. So that's why those are important. And now we're going on to the polka dotted ones. And here's the one on the right and the one on the left. This is number 3, leaf number 3. And I think what we're going to do with this one is we're going to move it down just 1/8 of an inch. So we have a little bit more room. And we're really going to have the issue here, I think. If we have an issue, that's where it's going to be. We're going to tuck that tail underneath the vine. And I think our original placement, according to the design, is going to work out fine here. Now we will have to work with that tail to that leaf when we sew it down. It's going to have to tuck up in here. Just like that. Okay. And let's go ahead and put our bud on. So here's what I would recommend. If you're like I am and you're kind of working on this and you've got all your pieces ready and you're ready to go, I would recommend that you come in and put all your curvy vines in and only glue those curvy vines on and then sew them, and then come back and put your straight vines on and then sew them. You don't want to have a lot of pieces glued on that aren't sewn on because it gets really difficult to manage the fabric to sew them on and still have those pieces that are kind of half hanging there glued on. So I'm just going to do one little section here and then I'm going to sew. And then I'm going to come back and do another section and sew. Right now I'm going to glue this whole area down. I want to put the flower down next so that you can see what it's going to look like. So we're going to start first with the yellow piece. And I'm just going to dot right along the edge. And then I'm going to put like 3 dots in the middle. And I'm really going to rely on this diagram to give me placement of that outside edge. I don't really care too much about the inside because it's going to be covered. So we've got that on. Now we're going to move on to the pink, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to dot along the edges and 3 in the middle. I wouldn't put a lot of glue in the middle because sometimes you can see that. And I'm lining up just the outside placement first. And then looking to see if it looks about right. I think that looks pretty well in the right place. And then we're going to do the same for the little green in the middle. Now this piece is going to be our final piece to finish this up and cover our vine. And I'm going to give it just a little bit more glue. It's a little piece that has a specific purpose, and you know, we had some small seam allowances there, so I want to make sure those stay in place. And again, I'm lining up these points here to get those in place, and then it should come down right on top of that vine. Okay, there we go. So now that's been super fast. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and glue down the other side, and we might just talk while I do this because we've only got 4 leaves and a bud. So the next leaf is going to be this one. This is the left one, which is that side, and the right one, which is this side, and the right one, which is this one, and the left one, which is this one. Okay, let's glue those on. And I had a thing the other day where I had used this glue and actually had to pull the piece completely up to reposition it. And it did a great job of just being able to gently pull it away and then re-glue and stick it right back on. I was very happy with that. Okay, little fit problem here. See, I'm going to pull that vine up, stick that leaf underneath it, and then glue it back down. And the placement's off just a little bit, just to give it equal room around there. Here I'm going to trim this one just a little bit to get a little better fit. There we go. And then we can, where that little tail is showing there, when we sew, we can pull that under and it won't show. This is just about placement. Our stitching will be our final attachment. Because if you glue this and you didn't stitch it, you threw it in the washing machine or you had to spritz it with some water or spot clean it or something, every bit of it would probably come off because this glue is water soluble. Okay, final little piece for the day. And there we go. So we got in our show today, all of the pieces in this quadrant glued down. And doesn't it look really cute? Make sure you've got a really good view of that. Straighten our paper out. And I am going to slip this light box out. So you might even get a better view. We can pull this one out now. All right. It's exciting when it comes together and it really begins to show what it's going to look like. And when we're not going to put this in yet. We're not ready for it. But there's a little idea of how that centerpiece is really going to pull that together. It's quite attractive, I think. Let me find the lid to this. That's always important. And that's something that I can't find locally, so I don't want to have to wait to order more. That's how we're looking so far. Now I've got one side, this is all stitched on, and I do like to take my time when I stitch it. I do it all by hand. You could do this by machine either with a straight stitch or a small zigzag. I wouldn't use a big zigzag because this is a really delicate kind of design. You could use a small zigzag or you could use a small blanket stitch on your machine to do this. I just prefer to do it by hand. But it's coming together and we're going to be done with this before you know it as far as the applique pieces go. Okay, so this week we got another quadrant of this glued down, and I am going to be working on stitching this down this week. If you're sewing along with us, if you want to try to do the same, that's great. Or if you want to try to do segments, maybe do all your vines this week, do all your leaves this week, whatever works best for you. And next week's show, probably what we'll talk about is some of the challenges of the hand stitching on this and how to work through those, and maybe when it's important to match threads, when it's not. As far as thread colors go, and if you don't have a particular thread, because sometimes when you're working on these appliques, you can really be talking about a lot of different colors of thread, how you can use a thread that kind of blends into it without actually matching. So we'll talk about some of those things, the challenges, things that went well, things that didn't go well. And then we'll kind of move on towards finishing up this top. And then we'll decide at that point how we're going to finish the project in its entirety. If you liked our video today, please give us a thumbs up and share this video with someone you know who loves applique. I think it's been really fun and it's really come together pretty quickly. Subscribe to the channel, and if you're interested in a membership, we have those where you get early access to all of the videos that have been posted. And we usually run it at least a couple of weeks ahead and sometimes even more. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week here at the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Bye.